Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. What an action-packed weekend it has been. We have Bitcoin rallying in a big way off the backs of the Trump news obviously breaking over the weekend. In addition to that, you guys, and as expected, the Bitcoin miners have taken off in a massive way this morning, with many of the miners we cover up double-digit percentages. We've got a ton to go through in today's video, but before we do, take a second, smash the like button if you're making money this morning, you guys. Your portfolio should be looking green if you've been watching this channel for a while. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. We'd love to have you as part of the community. We're trying to get to 45,000 subscribers before we head down to Nashville for the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world in about a week and a half's time. And on top of that, let us know in the comment section below, is this the catalyst we've been waiting for in terms of the Bitcoin rally? Are we headed to new all-time highs? And which of these stocks, in your opinion, is positioned best to take advantage of this move in Bitcoin? Now, with that being said, let's get into today's podcast. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, Anthony and I are going to be following up on a tremendous amount of news that's broken over the weekend. Bitcoin price is rallying in a big way, flirting with 63,000 again, and the miners have taken off in a tremendous fashion here, with many of the miners now up double-digit percentages. So Anthony, a lot to unpack in today's presentation. First and foremost, how you're feeling today? Portfolio's likely looking green across the board, eh?
It's a good day for the miners today, and the Bitcoin price, like you say, hitting that 63,000 mark with regularity. So yeah, interesting day for the miners. Really good.
Yeah, interesting day for the miners and interesting day and weekend for the world here. Obviously, big event at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania. Former President Trump having a big impact on the Bitcoin market, Anthony, as a lot of people really look at Trump as an advocate for Bitcoin now, and him surviving this and now having a better chance of actually winning as a result has kickstarted the Bitcoin rally in a big way, acting as a catalyst and seeing Bitcoin actually break 63,000 over the weekend. So let's start off with that. What is your reaction to this? Are you surprised to see Bitcoin rallying in such a big fashion?
Um, well, we're lining up with the incident that happened at the weekend there, but we talked about Bitcoin price does tend to start rallying post the halving, and we're in that sort of period now. There's 70 plus days heading towards 90 days. When previous cycles it's rallied, but this news story at the weekend, you got to remember, a lot of the Democrats have been talking Bitcoin down and trying to bring in more regulation and try to to put the bad press out about Bitcoin. Whereas the Republicans are sort of like come on more on board, and a lot more senators supporting it. And we've just seen the last month or so how President Trump has jumped on that as well. And he's an advocate for Bitcoin. He's coming to the Nashville Bitcoin conference next week, and we'll be there. Hopefully to catch a glimpse of his speech that he's planning to do on day 3. So he's still going to the conference. He's confirmed that post the incident of the weekend. So everything's lining up, and I'm sure it did have some impact on the price, because as soon as that news came out of what had occurred, the Bitcoin price started to rally from where it was.
Yeah, it immediately took a little dip there while things were uncertain. And as soon as they confirmed he was okay, you started to see that upward momentum. You're right, Anthony. We've got a news release out confirming that he's still going to be in Nashville. So from a political standpoint, it really seems that the bullish sentiment has started to build here. I keep thinking back to that presentation or podcast with Freedom by 40, saying, hey, from a technical analysis, something big is going to happen here. We're just waiting for that catalyst. And I think I said this on the podcast as well. It's the chicken and the egg in my head, Anthony. Are the news stories driving the charts, or are the charts driving the news stories? Who knows, but this definitely seems to line up. So from a political standpoint, we've got a lot of bullish sentiment. Also, from the ETF standpoint, Anthony, we're starting to see a big flood of money and funds back into the ETF market. So Friday last week, you guys, $310 million worth of inflows. We'll throw that up on the screen. That's one of the highest days ever. It is the highest day in a month. And then on top of that, if you look back over the last 12 trading days of July here, green every single day except for 2 with very minimal outflows on those 2 days. So Anthony, you've talked about how important this ETF is for this bull run. It seems the foot is back on the proverbial pedal here, to so to speak, and we're starting to see a lot of interest, a lot of money flowing back into these funds. Hey?
No, absolutely. And 310 million, that's a lot of Bitcoin there. That's more Bitcoin than the actual production in a day. So it's been, we've been seeing these green shoots all the way since the ETFs were approved back in January, and these funds are getting bigger and bigger. It's here to stay. Adoption's happening with regularity now, and people are starting to put some of their investment into Bitcoin, as was predicted, but maybe not at the pace that people were predicting it. So we've seen a real surge in these ETF balances, and like you say there, over the last 12 days, only 2 red days, and we're talking very minor red days. Other than that, most of the other days have been up, in the hundreds of millions every day in terms of inflows. So really, really positive. And I don't foresee this changing now. We've got the Ethereum ETF probably going to be approved imminently, and we'll start seeing the inflows in the Ethereum ETFs as soon as that occurs there, because we look at Bitcoin as sort of 50% of the whole crypto market, and Ethereum's not far short of 17-18% of the whole market. So those two coins together, you're heading towards 70% of the whole crypto world. So those are the biggest. Those are the 2 daddy coins there, and everyone else is playing catch up. But yeah, this is positive for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So political landscape very favorable, economic landscape very favorable. We've got Mr. 100 continuing to stack sats. That's probably your other account, I would say. Hey, Anthony, that might be your wallet, or?
I wish it was. But if he's putting 100 in every day, and bear in mind he's putting it in on the days where the markets are closed, Bitcoin doesn't close. Bitcoin's available 24/7. So that's a real putting all your eggs in a basket there. There's no let up on those purchases there, and millions and millions of dollars in transactions every day.
Yeah, it's incredible to see the confidence of Mr. 100, whether that's a company or person or country, who knows. And then on top of that, Anthony, just general entertainment sentiment. We're starting to see a lot of people, big names, Elon Musk, starting to endorse former President Trump. So obviously those supporters are starting to get more exposure to Bitcoin as well. We've got a big Netflix documentary coming out this month on Bitcoin, and this conference, Bitcoin Nashville, which is the biggest one in the world. So to me, Anthony, it seems like all of these factors are now coming together to create this perfect storm, so to speak, for Bitcoin. And as a result, and as the thumbnail implies, we're starting to see that liftoff in the Bitcoin mining sector in a big way this morning. We've got multiple miners that we cover, Anthony, up double-digit percentages in the first 2 hours of trading. You've got to be feeling really good about this one.
It's a good day, and we're starting to see the miners really getting back with the increase. The Bitcoin, we're seeing an increase in miners. We have seen some decoupling during the year. We saw the news coming through the last few months about those miners taking on the HPC. But today looks like it's miner day from a Bitcoin position there. So you've got the likes of Cypher, Core Scientific, HUT, all sort of edging towards 15% gains today. In fact, pretty much all the miners are in green at the moment. I mean, I suppose one that's bucking the trend is IREN, but IREN in pre-market had reached $14. So a couple of hours before the market opened, it was at $14. It's currently trading around $12.29, $12.30. So it's come off its day high at $14. But bear in mind, last week, after the report that came out, the short report that came out, that the stock price had gone below $11. So we've seen quite a lot of recovery since then, and this morning in pre-market it recovered again. So be interesting to see the message that comes out now with regards to that report from the company, but everything seems to be positive at the moment. It looked like it was a very short position in terms of what the company were trying to do in the marketplace. They had their shorts set for a very short period of time, made the gains, and have moved on maybe to another company now. So
I was gonna say, Anthony, what a bad weekend to choose to short the mining sector with all the news that transpired. Now, interestingly enough, the miners are obviously moving up on all the sentiment we just discussed, but hash price is also moving up, Anthony, which is the key financial or profitability metric for these companies. We also got an update on difficulty as miners start to plug back in now as the price of Bitcoin heads north. So quick update on those. I know we've been following them for a number of weeks here. Hash price moving in the right direction?
Hash price is moving in the right direction. So earlier today, we saw the hash price start to hit 51, and last week we were discussing it had reached a low of about 43. So that's a 20% increase on that the all-time low. And with the hash price itself going this direction, what it starts to mean then is you'll start seeing maybe more miners come back onto the network, and that will impact on sort of like the difficulty again. So as we saw the last difficulty come down because miners were leaving the network, it wasn't profitable to mine. When the price rises, it rose quickly from the position it was a week or so ago. It means that more miners are going on there thinking the rally's starting to occur. Let's start hashing, and the next difficulty change will be during this week. I think it's on the 18th, and early indications say that difficulty is going to make it harder in the future. So there's like a 3 to 4% potential increase in difficulty. At the moment, it's taking miners around about just over 9.5 minutes to mine a block. It should be taking them 10 minutes, so they're doing it quicker than expected. Therefore, the difficulty will change to get miners mining back at a 10-minute. That 10-minute is the key indicator. So if it's mining less than 10 minutes, the difficulty will go up. If it takes them longer than 10 minutes, it means it's harder for the miners to mine the block, and therefore the difficulty will be reduced to make it a little bit easier for them to mine. And all that's to do with miners on the network. So when there's a lot of miners on the network and the global hash rate increases, that's when you start seeing difficulty change. And we're starting to see that now with the Bitcoin price at 63, the hash price at 51. And as the Bitcoin price rises, the hash price rises as well. So they're absolutely correlated, because that's how this is calculated. So it'll be interesting to see where Bitcoin goes over these next few days as we approach the next adjustment.
It certainly will. So we've got the fundamentals starting to line up. We heard from Freedom by 40 that from a technical perspective, he was actually apologizing for being too bullish, Anthony. You and I were talking about that tweet over the next 6 months. Feels like it's going to be a very favorable time for this sector. We've got the political landscape shaping up. We've got the ETFs turning the afterburners back on. Everything really setting the stage here. Now, there's two other components I wanted to talk about in today's podcast, Anthony. Number one is retail and I guess institutional investor FOMO. Because we know this sector traditionally very sensitive towards fear of missing out. As soon as you start to see the Bitcoin price move, generally you've got a multiple on the miners. People start to take note of these moves. They see the volume. They see the big day over day changes in share price. They start to pile in. So I wanted to get your perspective on that one. And then we've got one more kind of X factor or variable to save for last here.
Yeah, I mean, this is great today. That the mining price is really starting to move now, and as the price rallies now, we'll see, you know, more growth in these stocks. Plus the fact that obviously we talked to a number of them, you know, this move into the HPC side, this extra business that's giving them more predictable revenues, has also had some real good impacts on a number of these stocks already. And we'll see how that goes the rest of the year. But, you know, you've still got those pure play miners out there, the Riots, the Marathons, the CleanSparks, the Cyphers of this world, who are sort of like betting solely on the price of Bitcoin. And days like today, you know, show them why they're, you know, staying in that part. You know, some great increases. Interesting point last week for the likes of Core Scientific. It's effectively now achieved all its levels now for all the warrants to be start to be converted. So it achieved the share price to exercise the Core Z warrant towards the end of last week, and so those can be converted now for the price of literally $0.01. The Cores W warrant was achieved, you know, before that, and those can be converted by shareholders. They have until the period of, I think it's the January 2027. So there's a long lead time. And obviously when you put these sort of plans into place, these finance plans, and it was a sort of a big recovery for Core Scientific. They've been in Chapter 11 for well over a year. And they came out there with a plan to how they were going to repay this $608 million of debt. Well, the plans worked, and you know, we'll start seeing in their next quarterly updates as the Cores W warrants start to get converted. That revenue will start to pay down the debt and start to give them a cash runway. I mean, from the company's perspective, they'll want that warrant to be exercised sooner rather than later, but it's obviously down to individuals themselves to do that. I don't know what the benefits are of keeping these warrants longer when the price is above, because I'm assuming now that both warrants are now effectively tracking the price of Bitcoin, and therefore, you know, the difference in the value of the warrants is the difference in the price of the Bitcoin versus what the actual warrant price for conversion. So once those warrants are converted, they have, you know, their plan was they'd have a cash runway of close to 400 million, which is a whole different world to where they were back in January the 23rd when they came out of Chapter 11. So really good update for them. They've done that within 6 months. So great credit to the team at Core Scientific. And obviously, you know, that was a great announcement. Obviously, the biggest announcement of the year in the mining industry was actually the CoreWeave contract. So they've had some really, really good positive updates, and looking forward to catching up with them and a load of other miners next week at the conference.
Yeah, it should be a great time at the conference. Anthony, before we get on to what I'm calling the X Factor here, a quick plug for Nashville Bitcoin. So I'm going to be moderating at the mining stage July 25th from 1:30 to 2:10 p.m. You guys, talking about treasury management for Bitcoin miners. So this is going to be a really interesting one. Talk about HODL, talk about ATM. And then Anthony, you've got a great panel as well, talking about HPC and how this is really taking over this industry. So I'll let you chat about that, and then we can get into our X Factor here.
Yeah, I'm looking at so my panel on the 26th of July at 11 in the morning for the 40 minutes on the stage, with the likes of Sam Tabar, with the likes of Aidan Killick, CEO of Hive, and with Andre Garanin, who's part of the Hive on Energy team. We're going to be discussing that there, and obviously highlighting how this HPC AI story has taken the miners and taken Wall Street, you know, to pay more attention to what's going on now. So that sounds like, because I think, you know, the biggest news story this year has been the sort of the CoreWeave contract. It's woken everybody up. It's got the conversation talking, and I'm going to be having a panel that's going to be talking about that and some of the things that these miners are now doing based on the fact that there is a market out there for high performance computing and how each of their strategies are starting to develop to go that way there. But also what's happening with Bitcoin mining in the future as well. So, you know, we're not talking about these miners giving up their core function, which is, you know, all these are Bitcoin miners. It's about, you know, how they're going to manage both businesses moving forward.
Certainly. Yeah, I can't wait for this conference. Some huge names going to be in attendance. Now, before we let you go today, I wanted to talk about this last variable, Anthony. And this actually came to me when we were on the bus going to Denton. I was talking to some of the Wall Street people. They were talking about crowded trades, and it got me thinking, a lot of these mining stocks, relatively low market cap compared to big tech, a lot of insider ownership, a lot of retail ownership. Now we've got the emergence of HPC, the flood of all this money, institutional money, hedge fund money into these miners just for the value of their infrastructure, their megawatts, their power purchase agreements, but in many ways really not considering or taking into account the Bitcoin mining potential of these companies. So what we've got transpiring here now, Anthony, is a lot of these shares have been purchased by these HPC advocates. Bitcoin has been pulling back. There hasn't been as much interest or strength in the underlying fundamentals or companies from a Bitcoin mining perspective. Now we've got Bitcoin price starting to kick in and a lot of attention. I'm thinking this could really be an explosive situation, Anthony, where there's not a lot of shares available. There's multiple different groups looking at these companies for multiple different reasons. And now we've got the HPC AI catalyst and the Bitcoin price, hash price catalyst really turning on at the same time. Could be a very exciting mix in terms of a retail investment sector over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, the story of the day is HPC, but the future is probably Bitcoin, and that's why you've got those pure play miners, sticking to that. Jason Les was, he applauded what some of these miners have done. The likes of Bit Digital and the likes of Core Scientific by getting these really significant contracts, delivering, for Bit Digital close to 100 million a year, and for Core Scientific it's going to be well over 300 million a year when they've got their 270 megawatts completed and managing that service for CoreWeave. So massive amounts of revenues, but as we've seen now with the Bitcoin price starts to rally. And it can rally significantly, and if we're led to believe what half these experts are saying, where the price is going to be this year, next year, and in a few years' time, the numbers are quite staggering. And people will say, this cycle's different from previous cycles. Well, in effect, it is different. The ETFs have made it different. There is definitely buying now into the Bitcoin story. And we're not talking small amounts. On the weekend we're talking, $310 million of buying of Bitcoin on one day. It's just staggering. How much is being bought by these these big ETF companies there, and it's the retail investors are starting to look at these avenues to as long-term investments, and that wasn't happening in previous cycles. So it's going to be interesting. We're going into what they call now the bull phase of Bitcoin, and we'll get Freedom by 40 back on the channel, because at the moment there's not many people can articulate the future planning the way that he can. So we need to get him back on the show in a couple of weeks on one of our live shows. So that there was a lot of interest in that last time, and he was quite happy, and we'll get him to show all the graphs and also cover the miners at the same time there, and what his thoughts on those mining stocks as well. So looking forward to that again.
Yeah, that'll be great. Speaking of guests, we've got DR Lewis coming up this Wednesday, and we're also working on rescheduling our interview with Hive, both Frank and IREN, to come on and talk about the updates there and recent press releases. So a lot of news going on here, you guys. We're a week and a half out from Nashville. Huge events in the Bitcoin space. It does feel like we're shaping up at the right place in the right time here in terms of this Bitcoin bull run that we've been talking about for so many quarters, Anthony. We'll leave it there, you guys. Make sure if you're still watching the video today, you're making some money, smash the like button. And of course, leave a comment in the section below. Let us know how the portfolio is looking today, if you're going to be in attendance to the conference next week, and your outlook for the price of Bitcoin in the back half of 2024. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you here tomorrow.